I'm 32 now, and every day, I wake up to a garden full of life, my own creation. My house, a cozy little thing surrounded by blooms and greenery, was the last gift from my grandma. This place is more than just land and a building, it's a testament to a battle I've fought since I was a kid, a battle against my own blood. In our family, owning the local restaurant wasn't just a job, it was an identity, passed down like some sacred torch. My brother, Mike, he took to it like a fish to water. Me? I was the odd one out, the black sheep with her head stuck in the dirt. Literally, according to my folks and Mike. A gardener, they'd sneer, as if the word left a bad taste in their mouths. Dinner conversations were a minefield. "Eva, look at ya, dirt under your nails at the dinner table. Ain't proper," Dad would grumble, his disapproval as heavy as his hand on the back of my chair. Mom would nod, her eyes darting between my hands and Mike's clean, expected ones. "He's right, Eva. You're not a child anymore. It's time you started thinking about your future in the restaurant, not playing in the mud." Only Grandma got it. She was my harbor in the storm, the one person who saw the dirt under my nails not as a sign of disobedience, but as a badge of honor. "Let the girl be," she'd chime in, her voice calm but firm against the rising tide of my parents' disappointment. "She's got a gift, don't you see? All this," she'd wave a hand over the garden. "It's not just dirt. It's life, it's passion." Grandma was the one who introduced me to the wonders of gardening. She'd talk about plants like they were old friends, each with their own quirks and needs. We'd spend hours in her garden, a place where I felt free, understood. She even took me to flower exhibitions, where I saw the possibilities of what could be created with just soil, seeds, and love. "Look at this, Eva," she'd say, pointing at a particularly stunning display. "You could do this even better. You've got the eye for it, the heart." But back home, encouragement from Grandma was like a whisper drowned out by a shout. Mike and my parents saw my love for gardening as a phase, a childish hobby that I'd eventually outgrow. But I knew better. The feel of soil between my fingers, the thrill of seeing something grow from nothing, it was where I belonged. One day, as I was planting some new shrubs I'd picked out, Mike came out, leaning against the doorframe with that look of his. "You really gonna do this forever? Play in the dirt like a kid? When you gonna get serious, Eva?" I remember looking up at him, dirt smudged on my face, defiant. "This is serious, Mike. More than you'll ever understand." He just shook his head, the same way they all did, and went back inside, leaving me to my childish pursuits. Despite their words, their looks, I couldn't give it up. It was more than just a passion, it was a part of me. And every plant that bloomed, every patch of earth that I transformed, was a silent victory. The day I told my family I wasn't gonna join the family restaurant biz, and instead dive into landscaping, you'd think I'd announced I was moving to Mars. Mom's face went all kinds of red, like a tomato ripe for the picking. Dad's, though, he just looked like he swallowed something sour. "You're doing what now?" Mom's voice hit octaves I didn't know existed. Her hands were all over the place, like wild birds trying to escape. "I want to be a landscape designer," I said, trying to keep my voice steady. "It's what I love, what I'm good at." Dad slammed his fist on the table, making the silverware jump. "Landscaping? That's no career for my daughter. You're meant to help run the restaurant. This is just nonsense." Their reaction was no surprise, but it stung all the same. That's when Grandma stepped in, her calm voice slicing through the tension. Now, let's all just take a moment. Eva's got a gift, and it's clear she's passionate about this. Why not give her a chance to explain?" So, I laid it all out. How I felt alive with soil under my nails, the joy of watching something I planted grow, the designs in my head just bursting to come out. I talked about the garden I'd planned in my head for Grandma's backyard, the plants I wanted to try, the colors and textures. I could see Grandma nodding, a small smile on her face, but Mom and Dad? They looked like they were sitting through a foreign film without subtitles. In the end, Dad gave me an ultimatum. "It's the restaurant or the door," he said, voice cold as ice. That's when Grandma, bless her, took me by the hand. "She'll stay with me," she announced, and that was that. I moved in with her the very next day. Grandma's place was a haven. We spent every day in the garden, digging, planting, designing. She listened to my ideas, offered her wisdom, and together we plotted out a space that was a reflection of both our spirits. It was during one of those days, hands deep in the earth, that she said, "You know, Eva, you've got something special. Your love for this, it's going to take you places." And then, something amazing happened. Mrs. Henderson, Grandma's next-door neighbor, had been watching us work and asked if I could do something with her sorry excuse for a garden. I jumped at the chance. It was my first real project, and I poured everything I had into it. The transformation was something else. Mrs. Henderson's barren plot turned into a vibrant oasis, bursting with colors and life. She was so over the moon that she paid me $500. I couldn't believe it. My very first paycheck for doing what I loved. "I told you," Grandma said, her eyes twinkling with pride. "You're going to make a name for yourself." We decided to celebrate at the local cafe, just me and her. It was a simple gathering, but it felt like a victory party. Over coffee and cake, we planned our next big project, her garden centerpiece. "To your first job," Grandma toasted, raising her coffee cup. "To many more," I replied, the weight of my family's expectations feeling lighter than it had in years. That night, as I lay in my old room at Grandma's, I realized something. This was just the beginning. The road ahead was uncertain, scary even, but for the first time in my life, I felt like I was exactly where I was supposed to be. Leaving for the city to dive into landscape design was like stepping onto another planet. I soaked up every bit of knowledge and beauty I could, feeling more alive than ever. Through it all, Grandma was my anchor. We'd talk for hours, whether I was back home for the holidays or just catching up over the phone. She never tired of hearing about my studies, my projects, or the new plants I was obsessing over. But as for Mom, Dad, and Mike? Radio silence. It was as if I'd vanished from their lives the moment I chose my path. Then, everything changed when Grandma passed away. It hit me like a freight train. She was my rock, my biggest supporter. After the funeral, which was the last time I saw my family, I learned that Grandma left me everything, her house, her garden, and a bit of savings. She believed in me and my dreams, even if no one else did. But that's when the storm hit. My family, already distant, turned colder. They had plans for Grandma's house, dreams of selling it to pour money into the restaurant. When they found out about the will, all hell broke loose. "You can't be serious." Dad bellowed over the phone when I told them I was keeping the house and using Grandma's savings to fund my career. "That money, that house, it's meant for the family, for the restaurant." Mom's voice was no less fierce. "How can you be so selfish? Your grandmother would be ashamed of you, hoarding everything for yourself." Even Mike, who rarely got involved, chimed in. "Come on, Eva. Don't do this to the family. We need that money." Their words stung, but I stood my ground. Grandma believed in me, in what I'm doing. She wanted me to have the house, to make something of myself. I'm honoring her wishes, whether you like it or not. The line went silent for a moment before Dad's voice cut through, colder than I'd ever heard it. "If you go through with this, don't bother calling us your family anymore. You're on your own, Eva." And just like that, the decision was made for me. I lost more than Grandma that day, I lost my family. But in the midst of that loss, I found a resolve I didn't know I had. So, I poured myself into my work, into transforming her garden into a tribute to her memory. It wasn't just about plants and designs, it was about proving to myself, and maybe to them, that I could make it on my own. That I was more than just the family outcast, more than just a gardener. Years rolled by, thick and fast, like seasons changing in my garden. My old but snug Grandma's house became a slice of paradise in the midst of my hustle. Friends became my new family, filling the house with laughter and warmth, especially during our legendary barbecue nights. Then, out of the blue, a wedding invitation landed in my mailbox. It was from my brother, Mike. A wedding at the family restaurant, the very place I'd drifted apart from what used to be my family. My heart sank a little, memories, both sweet and sour, bubbling up. I can't believe Mike's getting hitched, I mumbled to myself, flipping the invitation in my hands. That evening, my backyard was buzzing with the usual suspects, my friends, grilling and chilling. I tossed the invitation on the table, a silent announcement. "You gotta go," Jess said, snagging a burnt sausage off the grill. Her words were blunt, no room for argument. "Yeah, show 'em how you flourished, Eva. Like one of your gardens," added Sam, his grin encouraging but knowing the turmoil I felt. I sighed, the weight of the decision pressing down on me. But stepping back there, after everything? It's not about them, Eva. It's about closure, for you. And who knows, maybe a fresh start? Jess nudged, always the optimist. Their words, a mix of wisdom and whiskey, finally got to me. All right, I'll go. For Grandma, if nothing else, I conceded, my voice a mix of determination and dread. The next few days were a whirlwind of preparations. I found myself in front of a mirror, trying on a dress that felt like armor. It was beautiful, in a way that whispered confidence and grace, not just to the world but to me, too. "I'm doing this," I whispered to my reflection, a promise to the woman staring back. Choosing a gift for Mike was another battle. What do you gift someone who's drifted so far away? They're more a memory than a brother. In the end, I settled on a rare plant, a symbol of growth and resilience. Something only I would give, a nod to our shared past and my unyielding love for the green and growing things. The family restaurant, decked out in garish decorations, felt both familiar and alien. I'd hoped for a fresh start, or at least some semblance of civility. That hope shattered the moment I caught sight of my family. Mike spotted me first. "Well, ain't this a surprise? Thought you'd be too busy playing in the dirt to remember your only brother's wedding," he said, loud enough for a circle of guests to hear, his smirk wide and unwelcoming. I tried to keep my voice steady. "Congratulations, Mike. Wishing you both the best." My attempt at diplomacy fell flat, his smirk turning into a sneer. Mom and Dad were next, their expressions a mix of shock and disapproval. "Eva, you actually came. Thought you'd consider this too mundane for your exquisite tastes," Mom said, her voice laced with sarcasm, barely concealing her disdain. Dad's eyes scanned me from head to toe, his disappointment palpable. "Hope you've left your garden long enough to remember how to behave at a family event," he added, his tone harsh and unforgiving. Then came Mike's fiancée, Clara, eyeing me like I was a specimen rather than a person. "So, you're the infamous sister. Mike said you'd rather plant flowers than be part of the family." "Can't say he was wrong," she said, her voice dripping with contempt, her hand resting possessively on Mike's arm. The conversation around us had paused, the guests' attention now fixed on the unfolding drama. I felt their stares, curious and judgmental, as if I were an exhibit on display. Trying to salvage some dignity, I responded, "Just wanted to wish you both happiness. That's all." But the barbs kept coming. "Make sure you don't dirty up the place, Gardner. Wouldn't want the guests thinking we let just anyone in," Mike quipped, the guests around him chuckling uncomfortably. Feeling smaller by the second, I was directed to a table in the corner, away from the family, away from any semblance of belonging. The table was clearly an afterthought, barely decorated and awkwardly positioned. As I took my seat, the whispers grew louder, the glances more pitying. "I heard she chose weeds over family," someone whispered, not too far from me. "Imagine missing out on real life, because you prefer dirt," another snickered. The laughter and music swelled, a stark contrast to the coldness at my solitary corner. I was an outsider here, surrounded by people who knew me only by the scornful stories they'd heard. As the wedding dragged on, with me tucked away in my corner like an afterthought, the atmosphere started to shift. The night was filled with the usual wedding fare, dancing, toasts, and a bit too much alcohol for some. Yet, amidst the revelry, an unexpected moment of redemption emerged, catching me off guard. It happened just as I was contemplating making my quiet exit, unnoticed and unmissed. The mayor of our town, a guest of honor due to his ties with the bride's family, took to the stage for his speech. His presence was a big deal, lending a certain prestige to the event. I'd met him a few times professionally, given my work on several city park projects, but I doubted he'd remember me. "Ladies and gentlemen," he began, his voice commanding attention. The room hushed, glasses pausing mid-air as everyone turned to listen. As he spoke about community and coming together, his gaze suddenly found mine. He asked Mike and his fiancée with a puzzled look, "Why's the famous landscape designer sitting all by herself like she's been put in timeout?" Mike and Clara glanced at each other, clearly clueless. That's when the mayor pointed straight at me. You could have heard a pin drop. My family looked like they'd seen a ghost. The mayor beckoned me over. "Folks, we're lucky tonight. Right here, we've got the talent behind our city's most beautiful parks. Not to mention, she's just snagged a cool 300 grand from the city for her next project." Applause filled the room, echoing off the walls, as I made my way to the front. I took the mic, feeling a mix of pride and nerves. "Thanks, Mr. Mayor," I started. "It's all about making our city a better place, one garden at a time." Then, turning to my family, I couldn't help but add, "Mike, Clara, congrats. Seems like you two are a perfect match." A light jab at their earlier coldness. To my parents, I said, "Hope you're not too embarrassed by your gardener daughter now." Their faces were a picture of shock and burning shame. The room was buzzing, whispers spreading like wildfire. I could feel the shift in the air, the looks of surprise and newfound respect from the guests. I returned to my table, no longer the outcast, but the evening's unexpected star. The mayor and a few other city bigwigs joined me, their interest genuine. The night took on a new flavor, conversation swirling around future projects and the sudden spotlight on me. For the first time in a long time, I didn't feel like just the odd one out in my family. I was Eva, the landscape designer who'd carved her own path, one that even the mayor admired. And as for my family, well, let's just say the evening gave them a lot to think about. The evening of my brother's wedding unfolded into something far beyond the awkward family reunion I'd anticipated. Surrounded by the city's elite, I found myself in deep conversation with the mayor, among others, about the potential for new, ambitious landscaping projects throughout the city. His enthusiasm was infectious, and for a moment, I allowed myself to dream bigger than I ever had before. "And Eva, your vision for the new park downtown, it's exactly what we need to breathe life back into that area," the mayor said, his eyes alight with excitement. "Your ability to see the beauty in the neglected spaces is remarkable." "Thank you, Mr. Mayor. I believe every corner of our city has potential. It's just about finding the right way to bring it out," I replied, feeling a swell of pride. The conversations didn't stop there. The head of the local TV channel, intrigued by my story, pitched the idea of a feature segment. "Eva, your journey from a misunderstood gardener to a celebrated landscape designer is inspiring. How do you feel about sharing your story with our viewers? Show them how following your passion can lead to unexpected success," he suggested, his camera crew already imagining the shots. "I'm humbled, really. If my story can inspire even one person to follow their heart, it would be worth it," I answered, the reality of my influence beginning to dawn on me. As the night wore on, the mayor's disappointment in his niece and my family's behavior became unmistakably clear. His confrontation with Clara was a moment of vindication I hadn't known I needed. "Clara, I expected better. The way you and your new family have treated Eva, it's unacceptable. I cannot, in good conscience, support the restaurant financially or otherwise. Respect and kindness are values we should all uphold," he stated firmly, leaving Clara and my brother visibly shaken. Riding the wave of the evening's revelations, I returned home with my head full of possibilities and my heart light, despite the undercurrents of family drama. That lightness was short-lived, however, as Mike's unexpected visit a week later brought me crashing back to reality. "Eva, we're struggling. The restaurant, we're in deep. I wouldn't ask if it wasn't serious. Can you help us out?" Mike's request was desperate, his pride swallowed by necessity. "Mike, coming here, asking for money now? After everything? You really don't get it, do you? I built my life, my career, on my own, despite how you all treated me." "No, I won't bail you out," I said, my voice steady, my resolve unwavering. His departure was followed by a call from our parents, their tones sugary, their intentions transparent. "Eva, sweetheart, we've been thinking about you. How successful you've become. We're so proud. Maybe you could share a bit of that success? Help the family business?" They cooed, their words dripping with insincerity. "You think you can ignore me, belittle my passion, and then when I make something of myself, you call to ask for money? I'm doing well, thanks for finally noticing. But I won't be your safety net." "Goodbye," I replied, hanging up with a mix of anger and liberation. The chapter of seeking approval from those who'd never understood me was closing. Ahead lay a path filled with potential, paved by my own achievements and the respect of those who truly valued my work. Life, as they say, has a funny way of coming full circle. While I was out there, laying down roots in more ways than one, my family's restaurant was crumbling, brick by metaphorical brick. Turns out, the lavish lifestyle and the illusion of prosperity my parents and Mike were so keen on maintaining was just that, an illusion. They hadn't been investing back into the business. Instead, they were burning cash on fancy toys and flashier ways to show off. When the restaurant finally went under, it took them down with it, drowning in a sea of debt and broken dreams. Mike's marriage didn't survive the fallout. Clara, who had married him thinking she was getting the future king of the local dining scene, wasn't about to stick around for the downfall. She left, leaving him to wallow in the mess that was now his life. No restaurant, no wife, just a heap of debt and regret. On my end, though, things were blooming beautifully. Orders were rolling in nonstop. The mayor's office had me on speed dial, wanting to greenify every corner of our town. And it wasn't just them, private clients wanted a piece of the magic too. My calendar was a colorful mess of appointments, projects, and meetups with some of the most fascinating folks you'd ever meet. The TV spot aired, and suddenly, I wasn't just the local gardener made good, I was a story, a beacon for anyone daring to dream differently. People loved it, flooding my social media with support, sharing their own stories of chasing dreams no matter the odds. "Did you see the comments on that post?" My assistant, a bright-eyed green thumb named Lucy, asked me one day, scrolling through her phone with a grin. "You're like a celebrity now." I chuckled, shaking my head. "All because I like playing in the dirt." "It's more than that, and you know it," Lucy shot back, always quick to remind me of the bigger picture. "You're showing people it's okay to follow their passion. That's huge." She was right, of course. What started in my grandma's backyard had grown into something I could never have imagined. And speaking of grandma, not a day went by that I didn't think of her. Every plant I placed, every design I drafted, was a testament to her belief in me. As for my family, well, the silence between us stretched on. They were too proud, or perhaps too ashamed, to reach out after everything that had happened. I heard about their struggles through the grapevine, the same way they likely heard about my successes. One quiet evening, as I sat reviewing plans for a new community garden, a thought struck me. Despite the distance, the hurt, and the vastly different paths our lives had taken, they were still my family. Maybe it was time to bridge that gap, to offer an olive branch. Not because they deserved it, necessarily, but because holding on to bitterness was like letting weeds take over a garden. I picked up my phone, hesitated for a moment, and then dialed Mike's number. It rang, and then, finally, "Hello? Mike, it's Eva. I've been thinking, maybe it's time we talked. Really talked. The line was silent for a beat, 2 beats, then, yeah. Maybe it is. The conversation was awkward, stilted, but it was a start. A seed planted towards something new. Maybe it would grow, maybe it wouldn't. But at least I'd tried. And in the meantime, I had gardens to design, dreams to nurture, and a legacy to build, one that Grandma would have been proud of.